I'm here with Darren Saul, who has been an IT recruiter for all of 20 years now.
That's right.
Which is, I guess, obviously a lot of experience. How many people have you placed, Darren?
Oh, we were talking about this just before, and I'd say it be in the order of 500-600, maybe more. Like, who knows?
500-600.
Yeah, in 20 years.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I would imagine it'd be a lot. 20 years, I guess, mostly for yourself, and you've also done it previous to that. Now, here's the thing. You started in something completely different.
That's right.
You started as a pharmacist.
Yes.
You got a degree in pharmacy.
Yep.
How did that work? I mean, why did you make that change, I guess?
Sure. So I started, I was always interested in science, and I was always good at science, and I was pretty good at school. So I always thought, all right, let's do pharmacy, because I thought, it was pretty close to medicine, and I would never have got the marks for medicine. And I just thought, all right, pharmacy, beautiful. And I went and I studied and I practiced for 4 or 5 years. And then I just realized that it just wasn't for me. Like I'm a people person. I was spending more of my time outside the pharmacy, talking to everybody walking by, than actually in my dispensary dispensing medication. And I thought, what? I like to chat. I like to connect with people. I just couldn't be stuck behind there in my little cage, pumping out scripts and, dealing with all that stuff. So I thought, this is not going to be for me for the rest of my life. So,
but I guess it's interesting because you went into IT, right?
Yeah.
Which I guess you're recruiting for a position in many ways. Not all the IT roles are like this, but many of those IT roles are behind a desk.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're dealing with people who are doing that.
Yep.
And my guess is, it is my experience now, because I worked in finance, and I actually thought about becoming a recruiter once upon a time too.
Yep.
And I mentioned this before.
Yeah.
Because I found myself a little bit more common with the recruiter personality than with the finance one.
Yep.
So I guess a lot of the guys that you'll meet aren't necessarily people as well, right? They want to be in front of the computer doing stuff.
Yes.
How do you, I guess, being a different personality to the people you're trying to place, how do you work through that? Like, how do you help them? And I mean, do you tend to, is there some sort of natural bias that happens, I guess, with a recruiter?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, really good question. So it's there's a few parts to that. I think it's also about like, how do I interact with my candidates, but then also how do I screen and select my candidates for fit for my client? So it's kind of like multifaceted in a way. And like, I've always been really good with people. I just love people. I really do. I love connecting with people. I love talking to people. I love, meeting new people. I love chatting, and I'm a good listener as well, even though I can talk, but when I'm in a conversation, a lot of the time I'm just a listener. And I've always been good with, building rapport and just good with people. So it just came naturally to me to work with different people, different types. I've got, I'm good at understanding the different types of people and what different nuances they have and what they might need to be responded to versus others. What everybody needs something else. So I've just been good with people and good at reading people. So
okay,
it's kind of been.
Is that something you help with employers with? Because obviously, if the guy is, let's say, technically competent, very good IT, how do you have to coach that guy to interview better, or do you help with the employer to explaining this guy's really good at this stuff?
Yeah, that's really good question. I mean, nowadays, more than ever before, it was always important, but nowadays there's always this big focus on, the right fit for the company, the right personality fit, and it's about EQ, which is emotional intelligence, people that have the right attitude, the right aptitudes, and it's less about the skills and experience. It's always skills and experience is always important, but people would forego 10 or 20% of their list of requirements in favor of a fantastic personality and a fantastic attitude and enthusiasm that they know that they can train.
Right. And is that more important for in IT, or do you think it's sort of more important in IT compared to other areas?
Yeah.
Because maybe it's a little bit rare. I don't know. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, and it's true. Like IT is a bit of a paradox because, a lot of techie people like to be behind the computer, and they don't like to always be in front of other people, and they're more interested in the technology side of things. And there's different roles within IT. Some are more people oriented than others, but IT companies still look for the softer skills and the non-technical skills as extremely important, because remember that whether you're working for an IT company or you're working for a corporate organization, as an IT person, you're still going to have to interact with other employees and other people and clients. So you still need to be good with people. So it's really important for people to have a really great self-awareness of how they are with other people, and try and sharpen your communication skills, sharpen your EQ. That's a really big thing. I can't stress that enough for people looking for work, and even in the interview process, how you interact with your interviewers, whether it's via Zoom or whether it's face-to-face or on the phone, how you interact with those people during the process will say a lot about who you are as a person from your softer skills. So that's a really important skill to grow. And it's a never ending process, but it's really important to focus on, when you're looking for work particularly.
No, I understood. I mean, I always found it extremely important. And especially after that initial few years, we sort of want that because you will have to deal with more people.
Sure.
I'm going to start with this because I know at some point we'll get asked this. We'll get asked this. And I know people joining us through Facebook as well, so you might not be able to do the Q&A. So if you do have questions, put it in the Q&A box. There's also Zoom chat. If you want everyone to see the chat, make sure you select all panelists and all attendees. But in the Q&A box, we'll specifically answer this question. So type anything in there you like. So actually, I won't get to it right now because I want to lead to it, I guess. You mentioned before, though, that one of the key things that people, myself and yourself have had people come to us where there's been a lot of, how do I put it? They've not been working for a while.
Yep.
And you hear all sorts of reasons. It's the system, it's the recruiters.
Yeah.
The recruiters are vampires without fangs.
Yeah. Recruiters don't answer telephone calls.
They don't answer calls. They never respond.
Yeah.
All these reasons.
Sure.
But you mentioned that you do have a strategy that you do teach people, and often this strategy works very well. What is that strategy that you have that helps people get that role?
Awesome. Great. I love talking about this because I've had so many candidates and job seekers come to me over the years, and a lot of them have come from overseas, or they've come from different industries, and it's their first time in IT or whatever. And, they might come to me after not having much success for a little while and saying, look, how do I get work? How do I get my break? And I say to them, and I've given this advice to a lot of people over the years, and then invariably a lot of people come back to me after a certain amount of time, a short period of time, and say, Darren, thank you so much. You've really helped me. I've done what you said, and I've got a job, or I've got some interviews, or things are starting to happen. So what I want to try and challenge job seekers out there to think of job seeking like marketing, right? And a lot of people, they might think, what's he talking about? So I'm going to really try and explain this well, because when you're looking for work, you are basically selling and marketing yourself to an employer and to a recruiter, and sometimes to intermediate people that are going to refer you. So you have to think about yourself as a brand, as a personal brand, and market yourself and your experience and your skills for that job and to that person, so they can say, great, this person's fantastic. I want to interview this person. I want to know more. I want to learn. So there's 3 steps to this. And I thought about this before, and I thought, you know what, how can I really divide this up in a really simple way so people can understand 3 steps. The first one is, if you're marketing yourself or trying to achieve success in job seeking, you have to make sure that you are marketable, right? So that's where personal branding and self-awareness come in, right? You have to really make sure that, you know, you are putting your best foot forward. So you have to make sure you are, first of all, you have to do your preparation. You have to make sure your resume is ready. You have to practice. You have to role play your scenario, role play your articulating your story of where you've come from and what you've done. You have to role play every part of that process. You have to make sure that you're dressed accordingly. You have to make sure that you speak in the right manner, in a confident manner. You have to practice that. Practice the speed in which you speak. Practice your tone. You know, all these things. This is what gives you your personal brand and makes you marketable for a job, as opposed to another person. So that's number one. Number two is you have to actually go about that process of job seeking. And what I say to people is, don't just go on Seek or go on a job board or go on LinkedIn and say, oh yeah, I'm going to apply to that. I'm going to apply to that. I'm going to apply that. Or I'm on the bus and I'm just going to flick resumes all over the place.
Hit the button now.
Hit a button and send it out to 1 million people at the same time and hope that someone rings you back. That's not going to happen. You know, particularly if you're moving into the industry for the first time or for whatever reason, you have to be proactive. You have to take control of your job seeking journey. And the way that I give advice to people in that respect is I say, okay, do some research on Seek, on LinkedIn, or wherever it's relevant, you know, in your area. And everything that I'm going to give you is relevant to all facets of job seeking. It doesn't have to be IT. This holds true for anyone looking for work. As simple as that. And I would say, do some research as to which agencies and which agents in particular are the people that you think are going to be able to help you. They might be agents, agencies, they might be direct companies or HR departments. They might be other people in, you know, influencers that can help you find access to certain things. So do some research up front and put a list together of all those people that can help you, and then go and be proactive in making contact with them. Right? And that might be, ideally, you do it with a telephone call if you can, but I know that's getting harder and harder these days because people there's so much volume, there's so little time, recruiters are busy, you know, we don't get to answer all the phone calls. But even in that respect, you'd be surprised how many people don't even ring and don't leave a message. So they don't even allow us to ring you back, you know, but I'll get to that in a second. But so you have to really go through this journey and this process of putting yourself in front of all the people that can help you. And you have to, as I said, prepare your story, prepare your resume, prepare everything about you, be as marketable as you can, and then go and make contact with those people. And that's stage 2. Say, look, this is Darren. And if you can't do it on the phone, do it in an email, somehow connect with them and say, look, this is Darren. This is my story. I notice you've got a role that you're recruiting for. I'd love to talk to you for a minute or two, if I can, about my suitability and what I've been doing. And you might only get 1 or 2 out of 10 that actually allow you to go to that next step. But if you do nothing, and if you only just send out resumes and wait for people to ring you, you might get 0. Right? So this has already increased your chances by 10 or 20%, just because you've actually taken the bull by the horns and you've said, I'm going to go to you and I'm going to put myself in front of you. And I've had so many people, so many candidates come to me over the years that sometimes I might have been busy and I missed their resume, or something happened and I just couldn't see it. And they came to me and I said, you know what? Wow, thank God. Thanks so much for ringing me. Thanks so much for making contact, because now you've saved me a lot of work. You know, the great candidate has come to me.
I didn't have to read 200 resumes.
Yeah, that's a recruiter's dream. Recruiters want to make placements. We want to put the right people in the right jobs. So if the right people come to us, you've just saved us a hell of a lot of work, right? So you have to make sure that you are marketable and you are the right person. And you have to have a strategy of how you come to us and sell the fact that you are the right person and for that job. And you've just saved me a lot of hassles. And as I mentioned, people are scared nowadays to even make a phone call, and they're scared to leave a message. Sometimes they ring me 3 or 4 times in a row, but they don't leave a message. And I'm thinking, that's crazy. It boils down to confidence and how marketable you are. If you portray yourself and you can deliver your message in a very clear and concise and marketable way, I will bend over backwards to ring you back because I want to have a phone call with you because I want to see if you're the right person for the job. You see, I'm kind of turning everything on its head here.
Yeah, and I think people need to understand that, the recruiter, yes, they are to some degree working for you, only if you're the right candidate. But then you're not the person paying for the recruiter.
No, that's right.
The employer is paying for you.
Exactly.
And if you don't grab their attention, how could you grab the attention of the company?
Absolutely.
So think about it this way, you have to make the recruiter's job easier.
100%.
Right? That's how you get noticed. Make that job easier. Don't make their job harder. You're not paying them to do anything for you.
That's right. That is a really good analogy. You have to make the recruiter's job as easy as you can. So how do you do that? You work on yourself and your story and your marketability. You practice. You execute with perfection if you can. You do the best you can, of course, but you practice. And you are proactive in how you approach people that can help you. You don't sit and wait for them to come to you. You go to them.
And the practice part is important because I went from very bad at interviews to very good at it. You could say, yes, I had a few interviews that I failed, but it really wasn't that many. It was, I did an interview. I had rehearsed a little bit in my head sometimes. You could rehearse in a mirror. And then what you find is you go to the interview, maybe it didn't quite match what you thought, or, the answer didn't turn out right, or they asked a different question. Then you go and rehearse it in your mind again. It's really just mental modeling. And what I found was after a very short number of interviews or failed interviews, I felt like I could talk my way into a job, which I felt was very unfair to everyone else, because I'm sure there were people better qualified, probably better than I was at the job, but I felt like I could talk my way in. And that is the marketing part, right? And I won't say I didn't do the job better because I learned a bit of marketing.
You learned how to sell yourself.
I learned how to sell myself. And that's useful when you deal with all these stakeholders, which I had to, especially as you get more and more senior. We have a couple of questions which we'll get to.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I might just jump in and add one more point to that before because I'm going to wrap that up and then we'll go to that. So, and the last part of this journey, of this process, is, as you mentioned, you have to continually take feedback and critique what's happening. If something's not working, you've got to think about why. What can I do differently? What can I change? What did I learn from that experience? And what am I going to do differently next time? So it's 3 parts. Work on yourself and your brand, be marketable, then market yourself or sell yourself, go to the people that can help you. And third, critique what happens and constantly better yourself and grow with experience that you've learned. So, if you can do that, I guarantee it, you might not get a job tomorrow, but you will have a much better success rate than if you did what you were doing before.
I understood. I was going to launch this quick poll. I know not everyone's online on Zoom. Some will be on other channels, but I'll just launch this quick poll, and if you can answer it quickly. But we'll also get to these questions. So basically, it's just asking about what your current employment situation is. We might not do all the polls that we set up, but so as this is happening, I'll ask. There were 2 questions really about the same thing. You probably see it there, Darren. It's about local experience. And we've talked about this before. When I do seminars, I often get this question. How do you overcome this local experience problem? And the second one, well, it's about, is it unique to Australia as well? So what is your answer to that? And you probably get that a lot too.
I do. What a great question. And I really want to get into this right now. I mean, it's obvious when you don't have, well, it's no secret that when you don't have local experience, it's a bit trickier, obviously. People do tend to focus on local experience because they know that you've already, you understand how the working culture works and that wherever you are, you kind of know a bit about how that job works in the local area. But so already, absolutely, it's a bit of a challenge. But I want to say that that's why you have to really make sure that everything else you do is going to compensate and even overcompensate in a way to bridge that gap, right? So if I know that I've come from another country and I might not have had some local experience doing a certain thing, but I might have done it somewhere else, I will do my best to make myself come across as such a strong candidate from every other aspect of that role. And the only thing where I don't tick that box is local experience. So if I can tick 9 out of 10 boxes, someone might say, you know what, we've interviewed all these people. That's a 5, that's a 4, that's a 3. They've got local experience, but this guy comes across really well. He's prepared. He's ambitious. He's been doing the role in another country. He's eager to learn. He's gonna, you know that he or she is going to put everything they have into it. And then you might say, you know what, let's take a chance because you've shown me that you are hungry and that you've mastered the way you deliver your what you do. You've mastered how you speak to people. You've got great people skills. You've got great communication skills. You can tick every other box except for the local experience. So for me, 9 out of 10, I'll take it.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't really do that work and they just hang all their hopes on the experience and they don't go and do the rest of the work. And then that's why they might not have some success because someone else has local experience.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because what I've also found is there is a cultural factor, and my experience is I worked with a very large company, a few 100,000 employees, and they had a huge head office with thousands of people in there, and they had a whole floor. When I went looking for the manager, it was everyone was IT, and my perception, and there were a couple of guys who attended the meetings and their manager. And a couple of guys never really spoke in the meetings. And I was looking for the manager and I couldn't find them. I found these 2 guys and I couldn't understand them. But also, there's also this idea of when I work with certain people, especially from overseas, the culture is different. And one of the factors in that culture is they don't necessarily speak up or take initiative.
Yep, true.
And I sort of feel like that's one of the barriers. If you can show that you do that, sometimes the local experience question isn't so important. Right. It's almost like 100%. The local experience, I sort of feel like sometimes it's like, I'll wait for them to experience all that pain first somewhere else, where that, they have to get told, they're told that they can't wait to be told what to do. They have to do something without being told. And then they'll learn to speak up in meetings, because those guys never spoke up in a meeting. So that was part of the problem. They never spoke up. So I just spoke to the manager. And until I actually talked to them, I realized I couldn't understand them. They're talking jargon and all this sort of stuff. It's like, it was a different language. So the poll is finished. The poll is basically even number of people saying they're looking for work. They're not working. And people are working but want to change in the type of work that they do.
Sure. Okay.
So that's actually the answer to that poll. So that's actually equal number, which is interesting. So what I'll do, I'll try to do this. How do I do it? I'll also send the second poll. So as we're talking, you can answer this. This is about what sort of work that you do. So I'll launch that to the audience now. So as you're listening, just tell us what you do. It could be help desk, IT engineer, management. You can pick more than one. You could be in project management, and you work in you're an IT engineer as well. So allow them to pick more than one category. So, all right. So let's keep chatting. We had a bunch of questions. So we have another question from the panel here.
Yeah,
this is from Christine. So how would you tell a good story to a recruiter over the phone? And it is interesting because I actually, when I teach people, I tell them, if you do get the recruiter, have almost a script ready.
Yep. I love it. And that's a really good question. Funny enough, someone did that to me the other day. They had a script ready, and that was the first time I think anybody's ever done that, because I can use
They probably attended my thing. That's all.
They could have. But the only issue was that script went on for about 5 minutes.
Oh, that wasn't my thing then.
And so while it was happening, I thought, you know what? This is really good. I'm really impressed that this person has taken the time to actually at least put a script together so they come across articulate. But then they went on for about 10 minutes, and I said, okay, it's enough now. This is ridiculous. But so I think that's a really good point. But what I want to say is to people that make phone calls, and when you make introductions to recruiters for the first time, whether it's on the phone or whether it's in an email or in any form, you have to nail it as best you can, because that is the first impression. The first couple of minutes is everything. So a lot of people, when I say to them, so tell me a bit about your background, or tell me a bit about this, they'll just go off in a million tangents, and they'll ramble, and they go on for 20 minutes into all these details about projects and all sorts of things, when all I wanted to know is the bare basics and the skeleton of what I need to know. Remember, as we said before, you got to help the recruiter. You've got to give him as much information as he needs. He doesn't need your whole story. And to me, that is an example of really not preparing properly to tell your story, to articulate your story. You have to have that so ready and so down pat that when someone asks me, I can rattle it off. It's like an elevator pitch. You get your elevator pitch ready in 30 seconds, and that's the story you tell everybody, and you leave them wanting more. You leave them wanting to ask you more questions because they're interested. You don't vomit everything about your whole life in the first instance.
You don't want to be needy, I guess. Exactly. Part of it is you don't want to be like the desperate candidate, right?
Exactly. You don't offload everything. You just give it a nice summary. You say, I'm from here. I've done this for so many years. I've had experience with this technology. I'm looking for a full-time job, and I'm ready to start immediately. You make it really simple, and you practice that. And then the recruiter will say, all right, great. What question do I need to ask you? I need more information. How did you do this? Have you ever done that? What about this? It's a conversation. It's a dialogue. And a lot of people just ramble for half an hour, and I'm just stuck on the phone because I can't even say a word. I can't get a word in edgewise, and they've lost me. And that tells me that they haven't prepared, and they're not self-aware of what's going on. So that's why everything comes back to marketability and preparation. You have to do this. And as a similar story to you, like years ago when I left pharmacy, I went into work for a pharmaceutical company. But actually, before I did that, I was actually trying to work. After that, I was looking for work as a recruiter in the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay.
And I never got a job, but I ended up getting a job in recruitment. And the same story with you. I started off, being very simple and average in my job seeking abilities. But then I got better and better and better. And by the end of it, I was in an interview with a panel of like 5 or 6 people. And the feedback I got from the recruiter at the time for my application was said, he's too arrogant. He's too cocky. He's too confident, because I went from one extreme to the other. And just as an example, it just goes to show you that over time you can get better at executing and you can practice. But I went too far to the other side, and I got so confident that I became arrogant. So just, what I'm trying to say is you have to practice, and you have to be self-aware of what's going on in the situation. And you have to give the recruiter only what he needs, and then allow him to ask you for more.
No, understood. Oh, my landline never ever goes off. I don't even use it. So someone's marketing call me.
Yeah.
So it'll ring out.
Awesome.
So as the poll, not everyone's voted. So if you just have a chance, just tell us what you do. I'll just leave that there for a second longer. Okay, so that's that's great information. And look, it's true. My experience was this stuff can be learned.
Absolutely, it can.
And that script that you're going to have, this is my approach. And you tell me if this is right. Okay, I'll call. If I send the resume, I won't leave it to chance. I'll try to call them to get them to read it quickly.
Perfect. Great.
All right. I'll call. Now, most of the time, they won't answer.
Yep.
So I will leave a message.
Yep.
But I might call again.
Yep.
Second time, usually someone else answers and says, "Oh, look, no, it's okay. I was just following up. I did leave a message earlier."
Sure.
Because you don't want to have 15 messages on their desk, right? Who's this guy, desperate person?
Yeah.
So there's one message. If they call back, that's fine. If they don't, I might just call a couple more times.
Sure. Great.
If I get them on the phone, and I actually do find about 25% of the time I get them on the phone.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I will have a little bit of a pitch ready.
Yep.
But I'll make the pitch relevant because there's a job description there.
100%.
All right. And you can't go off and if you have this to say this the job, if you go off a tangent is unrelated, then that's not interesting.
After that, you've lost them. Gone.
That's right. But I also put a few achievements in there. I put a few highlights. I drop a few things. You drop a few names, not so much the names of the companies, but I might have got an award or I've done a certain thing.
Beautiful. Love it.
But then I might ask a question.
Yep.
Because what I do is I think about what is the quality candidate do. The quality candidate is not desperate. They want to know if this job suits them as well.
100%.
So therefore, you stick to about a minute and a half. They might ask a question back, but you also ask them a question.
Yep.
And also, there's you get their interest. If the resume has to go through a system, they might just say, "Oh, can you just send it directly to my email?"
Yep.
And therefore, you send it directly to email. And what I do, I just make notes about what we talked about because I might have a list of recruiters that I've spoken to, and I'm terrible with names. So I'll write up on a spreadsheet who I called, what recruiter was, what was the job, what was the salary level, what we talked about.
Yep.
Was I supposed to do something, or was they going to get back to me by a certain day?
Yep.
And therefore, by that day, if they don't get back to me, I'll call them.
Perfect.
All that sort of stuff. And then, so if someone calls me back, I'll quickly go to my spreadsheet and work out who this was because I can't remember.
Yep.
Because I might have tailored my resume too.
I love
that role.
Beautiful.
And said certain things. So I'm going to make sure I don't say something wrong, which wasn't what we talked about. So this is that attitude of I'm marketing to these people. These guys aren't working for me. I've got to sell them.
100%. Yep.
Yeah, these guys are paying me in a way.
Yep.
100%. They have to. I benefit them, so therefore they're my client.
Yes. Yep.
That's the way I look at it.
And the stuff that you've just come up with is absolutely brilliant. And I'm glad you did, because in my first part of the process, when I mentioned you have to be proactive, I didn't actually go into the tactics.
Mm-hmm.
And you just outlined the exact methodology that I would recommend.
Right.
And that is, don't just send out your resume and wait.
Mm-hmm.
Try and make contact with someone before you send your resume. Get them on the phone at least. Try once or twice. If it doesn't work, send your resume and then make a call and follow up. And make a few calls to follow up, but not every 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Once a day, once every 2 days. Did you get my application? Blah, blah, blah. And then, as you say, make sure you have a script ready. Make sure you're prepared.
Mm-hmm.
You execute. You've role played. You know what you want to say. Don't ramble. And then ask an intelligent question, because I think that's brilliant. Because what defines and what separates sometimes great people from okay people is how they ask questions, because questions can tell you so much about how that person thinks, how that person conducts themselves. So brilliant. And then your last part was keep a little spreadsheet of information, because I can't tell you how many times I have I've got 20 phone calls, 20 candidates to get back to today. And I just make a phone call, say, just returning your call, but I can't remember which role they're, inquiring about.
Oh, yes.
So they might, if they can say to me, oh yeah, I called you about this, and they look at their spreadsheet and say, I called you about the help desk job in Canberra. Beautiful. Fantastic. Let's have a chat. Otherwise I have to start spending 5 minutes trying to work out what job they were looking for. So
yes.
Everything you've said is absolutely brilliant. And it's a great strategy. And the only one thing I just want to add is when you do that, you separate yourself from all the other people out there that are just spraying and praying or sending out resumes and waiting. You are now saying, I'm coming to you, and that recruiter will say, I like you. Here's my direct email address. Can you send me an email directly? And instead of going to the resume box that everybody else goes to, you come to me directly because I like you and I want to bring you to the top of the pile.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've come to me and you've been successful in selling yourself. So it's absolutely brilliant.
And that top of the pile is sort of important, I find, because what happens is sometimes I get a call for a role and then the role's not even advertised yet. They're probably still typing the ad, but they call me first to see if I can do it. And then sometimes it's like, why'd you call me? This role's like not really suitable for me.
Yep.
But they liked you, so they thought they'd give you a chance first.
Yep. You're like the number one candidate they want to place.
Yes.
And anything that's remotely suitable, they ring you and see if it's any good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you stand out. And
yes.
Why? Because you've marketed yourself, you've prepared yourself, you've sold yourself, you've executed properly, you've done the work up front. If you don't do the work up front, you can't expect to reach that level of priority.
Understood. Let's talk about trends now.
Sure.
Trends in the market. Now, obviously you recruit for IT, so you see the IT trends. It doesn't necessarily have to be IT, but what trends you see in the market? I guess trends in the way that employers hire, maybe the questions they ask, what they ask for now. Also trends in what sort of new roles and vacancies are tending to be, I guess, more common and others are disappearing. Because I guess universities, people study certain things, but some of those subjects are sort of going out the door. And governments always like to respond to these things as an institution. Definitely. So are these trends that people should know about in terms of how employers hire and also how and what roles are turning up more?
Yeah, sure. There's so many new nuances now within the job seeking world. A lot of it's still the same, but there's a few nuances. So obviously what hasn't changed is that you still got to have experience. You still got to have experience relative to the role, and you still have to sell yourself, market yourself, and prepare. That hasn't changed, right? What has changed is sometimes time frames might be faster. You have to be quick. You have to be able to be a bit flexible in how you set up interviews with recruiters and with other people, because things now, the candidates are really poor in terms of quality. Candidates are hard to find. Suitability is hard to find. So things move really fast. So you have to make yourself available and you have to have that flexibility so you can move quickly to secure that your dream job, because you need to interview fast and recruiters need to interview you fast. So for example, after this call, I'm going to be doing a Zoom interview with a candidate. And that's another thing that's changed, is that a lot of the time now technology has become the medium for interviews from a recruiter point of view and a client point of view, particularly in COVID situation. We're doing a lot of interviews recorded on Zoom. So I do Zoom recordings and I share them with clients, and they watch the video of me interacting and interviewing a candidate. And I've been doing that for years, but it's getting more and more popular now. So, the means of interview and the means of communication is starting to change. So that also brings its own challenges. You have to get comfortable with video. You have to get comfortable with selling yourself through the screen, so you have to understand technology. So a few little nuances. What else has changed? A lot of people might think, is certification as important, or degrees as important as they used to be? I would say maybe not as much anymore. More and more, as I mentioned, more and more clients are looking for emotional intelligence, people skills, attitude. And if you haven't done a certification in that particular version of Windows, no problem. You've had some experience. We'll put you through a course and we'll get you certified. So there's less focus maybe on some of those things and more focus on the soft skills. So that's changed.
So you think that's actually a trend, like is more than before?
Significantly I think over the years, I've seen that slowly change over the years to where it's now like 80% of what we look for, and 20% the rest. Like it's really, at one stage we used to do resume searches for skills and experience and certifications and start there. Now we almost have a quick look at experience, but I want to see the rest.
I see. So you don't even necessarily look for those things. So I guess, when they write job experience, they say they want, obviously this many years experience in this area. Sure. So it's not so much the certification I always felt that it wasn't that for other areas, but IT, I might have thought it would be more. The technical part is more important.
Yeah, for example, when I look for a resume, I look for a resume really quickly. If I'm recruiting for I'm recruiting for a help desk role, right? Mm-hmm. Or an IT engineer. All I look for is how many years have you been in that industry? I just quickly scan your resume. I look for which companies you've worked for. If I'm looking for a particular style of, an IT company that needs IT company experience, I'll look for whether you have IT company experience or not, and I will look for this is the big one. I will look for how quickly you've moved between jobs. Okay.
And why is that?
Okay. Because that tells me, that gives me a trend. That gives me insight into your behavior. If you keep moving jobs every 6 months, I can see that you're not going to be a person that's going to stay in a job. You're not going to be a person that's going to give that job your all and make it your home and allow them to develop you and train you and put resources into you. You might get another offer 3 days later with a little bit more money and off you go. So I know already you're a risk. You're a flight risk. So to me, they go to the side. If they've done this many times, they're a serial offender in that respect. I will say, nah, you're too risky.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So I look at trends. I read between the lines. Recruiters, we don't have time to read every word and every skill and every bit of technology. We scan a resume quickly and we read between the lines. We want to know what story is the resume telling us. So
yes, that's interesting, because that's what it is, right? Your resume is a biography. Yep. It's a professional biography.
Yep. It's a story.
It's a biography. And it could be interesting or it can be really boring.
Yep.
Or it could be completely obviously useless. So, I actually have found this keyword stuffing really is bad, isn't it? Like people stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't go and stuff a million words 100 times just because you think that's going to pop up on a search. That's old school.
Mm-hmm. Right? I'm just going to launch a poll just to ask people whether they work within an IT company. I should put other as well, but sure. This is for people who actually work in IT, because you've been an IT recruiter. Do you work within an IT company or work in-house in a company doing IT for that company?
Yep. So
I've just launched that. So you have a chance just to fill that out. We'll keep talking. What about, and I know this sort of sounds like, okay, well, obviously you're a recruiter. We want to make sure you stay in business. But what creative ways can people look for roles, which isn't necessarily a recruited ad, let's say?
Sure.
Do you advertise everything?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Okay.
So the way that I work is I advertise everything. I'm also do everything through LinkedIn. LinkedIn has become a very big marketing channel for me. Mm-hmm. I post my new jobs. I market myself and everything I do on LinkedIn. And sometimes I post, a lot of the job sites now will post to a lot of free websites like Gumtree and other things, and all these other platforms automatically.
Okay.
So definitely a lot of jobs go to ads, but there used to be a statistic to say that 70% of the jobs don't even make it to the ad stage or make it to the recruiter stage, because people internally know other people, or a lot of internal recruiters or internal and managers will have their own ways of doing things. They'll have their own pools of candidates. So a lot of times you won't even get stuff that goes to ads. So, the recruitment path is not the only path to finding a job. And I would say, if you're looking for work, you have to cover all your bases. You have to go to all the recruiters that can help you. You have to go directly to companies. You have to go to other people that might have access to people that work in your industry. You might go to, seminars and work conferences and other things and meetup groups where you might put yourself in front of other people that need what you do. Don't think of it as only, and again, I keep coming back to it. It's marketing. You're basically working at how to market yourself across many different channels. You don't just rely on one, right?
No, understood. And I think one thing that I have, from some of the research, one thing people could do, and I talk about when people talk about the hidden job market, doesn't go to ad. So when they go to recruit, obviously they have to pay you money. It could take some time. You have to advertise and do a few things. But let's say there's no job vacancy. If you approach a company and say, look, I do this and this. Oh, there's no vacancy at the moment, but you can leave your details with us. And if there's something, we can give you a call. But let's say the average stay of a person, and maybe it's different for IT. Let's just say 2 years. A person stays in a role 2 years. Sure. And there's 4 roles on a company you could do. On average, then a vacancy will come up every 6 months. Right. Now, if you leave a resume there, they might have forgotten about you after 6 months. But if you just sort of email or keep in touch and says, oh, look, here's an updated resume, or just want to follow up, my circumstances are still this, maybe you're still working, or maybe I've just come, you say, I'll just come back from holidays, just want to follow up. Just keep in touch. And they will, what happens is they will remember you. And the statistics say that 1 out of 33 of those approaches to companies will result in a job, compared to 200 and something from an ad.
Absolutely.
So you're really increasing your chances there, let's say by about 8-fold. I'm going to release the final poll, which is basically about what people feel like they are lacking to get to their next role. I'll launch that now, but then we'll also go to, we have another question here.
Go for it.
About ATS, applicant.
Okay.
And here's a common one.
Sure.
So how to get past ATS, there is no recruiter contact is provided to pitch themselves. So basically they don't put a recruiter name, which is common. Half the put a name, half don't. Any recommendations for adding keywords to resumes? We sort of touched on that about no keyword stuffing. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, great. I mean, this again boils down to my initial philosophy and my initial strategy. If you have to find a way to get in front of the right people. So you have to show that you have initiative and that you're creative. So you might say, okay, great. There's an ad here, but I don't know who the recruiter is, and I have no phone number. So what would I do? If it was me, I would ring up that company. I'd ring up the front of house or the reception, and I'd say, hi, my name's Darren. I'm wanting to talk to somebody about this role that's been advertised today. Could you please put me through to the recruiter that's looking after that role? Right? And they might say, oh, there's a million different scenarios. They might say, oh, we don't do that. Can you please just send your resume here? And fair enough. Then you send your resume there, and then you would follow up regularly to try and break through. The second scenario is they might say, oh, that's John. He's busy at the moment, but here's his email address. We'll give you his email address or his number. Great. Now you have John's number. Or you might say, the other scenario would be, oh yeah, just hold on 5 minutes. He's on the phone. Hold on and I'll put you through. So look how many different things have happened just because you've made a phone call and tried to put yourself in front of the right person, rather than just saying, what do I do? There's no number, there's no email. I'm just going to send my resume and pray. You see, so again, it's about being proactive and finding a way. You've got to find a way. It's competitive out there. We've all got to find a way to get in front of who we need to get in front of. You got to do the work, but you got to prepare first, because if you make a fumble with that first phone call, it's all over.
And here's the other thought, and this is my experience, is people find reasons why they didn't get the job, but they don't really know.
Yep.
The applicant tracking, yes, may have filtered out your resume along with 50% of other resumes, maybe even more. But the reality is you don't know.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about my opinion about applicant tracking. It's a little bit like Google search.
Yeah.
What is Google trying to do? They're trying to duplicate what you're really looking for.
Yeah.
And they try to give you back. So it's like a human being going to the archives, but doing it a million times faster.
Yeah.
Applicant tracking is not designed to replace a person. It's designed to try to duplicate it, but do it in a fast way.
Yeah.
So don't think of applicant tracking as this stupid computer that just looks at keywords and gives you a point for every time you mention something which is in the ad.
Yeah.
It's trying to be sensible and say what would be a waste of a recruiter's time and which wouldn't.
And the applicant tracking system is also a way for us to track comments and history and what happened and data and all that kind of stuff. You know, but what you've said is brilliant, because don't think of the applicant tracking system as the gatekeeper. It's not the gatekeeper. It's not the decision maker. If you follow what I'm telling you and you market yourself, you bypass the applicant tracking system. The applicant tracking system is not even relevant, because I've got myself in front of the recruiter, and the recruiter's having a conversation with me, or I'm doing it on email, or however I'm doing it. And again, this might not work 8 out of 10 times, but even if it works 2 out of 10 times, you've just bypassed the gatekeeper, or who you think is the gatekeeper, for 2 out of 10 times more. And that's 20% more chance you're going to get a job. You know? So the applicant tracking system is not an enemy. It's not your gatekeeper. It's just irrelevant. You have to find a way to market yourself, get in front of the right people, bypass all your competition, and then you take control of your destiny.
But I also want to put this as well. It's think about your resume as your marketing document.
Definitely.
If you're not going to impress the recruiter's not going to rewrite it for you. Even if you verbally impress them, they don't rewrite it for you. They still have to send that to an employer. And if it's bad, then they can't do it. They're not going to spend, you probably know how many hours you took to write your own resume. They're not going to spend that many hours with the, the possibility that this person may get through, because they just don't have time to do that. So you need to write it for a human. Don't write it for ATS. Because the person rejects it really is the person, is the recruiter or the employer. They still have to read it. So a lot of people blame ATS. And I even knew a career coach who just focused exclusively on ATS because they helped write the code for one of the original ATS systems 2 decades ago. They improve it all the time, and they're not designed to be a stupid computer. So don't think that was the reason why you got rejected.
And I'm gonna throw something at you as well, like what you said before. I will even reject a resume just because of how it comes across and how it looks, and I'll reject that because that person hasn't taken the time to put a proper resume together. That's a proper marketing document. So even the resume itself is a massive step in that marketing process. As you say, it's a marketing tool. It's a reflection of you. It's a reflection of how you think, of how you write, of how committed you are to the role. So don't expect the recruiter to go and have to fix everything up and do all the work for you. They'll just get rid of that resume because it's shown them that the person behind it hasn't done the work.
Yes. Just a reminder for everyone to do that final poll. I see about half of you only have done it, but just on the resume too, and there's a final question someone has asked, and I'll get to that. One thing you should do is, the most impressive resume I've seen is I wrote a job description, someone applied, and they matched the job description on the first page in the order that I wrote it. most resumes, it's like, I asked for this, where is it?
Yep.
Like, oh, it's on page 3.
Yep.
I'm not going to get to page 3 because you told me up front that you're something else, not what I asked for.
Exactly.
So that's not marketing, and that's not even paying attention to the job description.
100%.
And a lot of the time, look, job descriptions aren't well written all the time either, because the person writing aren't marketing people either. They've written like 20 points, and like you can't hold 20 points in your head.
No.
But it's your job though to make sure that you fill in the gaps. Some of those points could be joined together. Some of the points are not important. They're just stuck stuff in because they thought, oh, you should write stuff like about, working well in a team, or, or something fluffy. It's the top points that are most important.
Yep.
Okay. So, final question here, which we're wearing at the time, new migrant with 10 plus years experience in banking industry without local experience, resume is never shortlisted. What could be done? I guess we sort of answered that.
Yep.
I'm just going to close the poll soon, just so people get a chance to answer that. What are your thoughts, Darren? I mean, this is similar to what we discussed before.
Yep. Okay, my advice really is try and make yourself as marketable as you possibly can. So fair enough. The resume doesn't always get through. Are you being proactive in trying to open up those opportunities for yourself? Or are you just sending a resume and waiting, right? Are you preparing your script when you make a phone call? Are you doing the work on that resume so it's a marketing document and not just, a long form piece of paper that doesn't say anything?
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing all the work up front to make sure you have the best chance you have? Like, obviously if you come from another place, there's a slight disadvantage because you haven't got local experience. So you have to make up for it in all those other areas.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
You can't use that as an excuse. You got to say, all right, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I am so marketable and people want to talk to me and they want to speak to me and I come across so well it's not even relevant anymore because I can sell myself around it in a way.
Mm. And here's my thought to that question. And I won't necessarily give the name, but this is what exercise I would do. Pretend you're the recruiter or the manager. Look at that job description. Look at your resume. Would you spend the time of day with that resume, with this job description? Because what happens is because you've been shortlisted, you don't know why. Yeah. You need to find out why. Now, it could be you have to make some phone calls and then finally get to somebody who could tell you once you send the resume, look, this didn't match.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you've done that. The other thing I mentioned is also there's a cultural factor sometimes. If I know people turn up later on the call. There's a cultural factor, and it can be worse if you've been overseas for a long time. You come to Australia. We want people to show more initiative. We want more open communication. We don't want you being quiet in meetings.
Yep.
They look too much up at the boss and do what the boss says, or don't want to make the boss lose face.
Yep.
Don't worry about that. We want open communication. Our structures are much flatter in Australia.
Definitely.
So we want a person who can chit chat a lot more.
Yep. And as well, I mean, if you're in that situation, you want to show people that you're here, that you're ready, that you're hungry. Be open and authentic and say, look, I know that I haven't got the local experience, but I've got the drive and I'm going to do everything I can to make this job a success because I really need this job. I want this job. Really don't show desperation, but show you're ready and you understand your situation and you understand what the recruiter or the hiring manager wants. And you've done your research into what the local culture needs, and show them that you're ready and that you can adapt and that you can be moldable and that you can be a great asset to their company. So as you say, do the work up front, do the research into what might be suitable here, but there's nothing wrong with actually showing that, that you understand your situation, but you're ready to take on the challenge and that you can make a success of it.
No, agreed. Just running our time down. I think you actually have some other activities that you do. You do podcasts and you do interviews with people. Would you like to talk about that? Just tell everyone about that.
Yeah, sure.
Because Darren actually records a lot of his interviews, as you mentioned, and also does a lot of other career stuff. You've got your own channel. So it might be worth people just having a look at that, see if it's going to be suitable, because Darren has a lot of experience, 20 years experience.
Sure. Do you want me to type that into the chat? Or
type into the chat. What I will also do, I'll find my chat box. Type in the chat box, make sure it's to panel and attendees.
All panelists and attendees. So I'm going to type my podcast here, guys.
I'm going to type, you type your podcast. I've just typed my Facebook and LinkedIn career groups where I put some of that content. You can join and have a look at that.
And I'll just type in my name, which is Darren Saul. And I'll tell people a bit about this now. From Saul Recruitment. Okay. And everybody can find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really my LinkedIn or Facebook, but LinkedIn is probably where the most suitable content will be. And I post I have my own podcast called Saul Searching. You can find that on Apple, or you can find that on Spotify, or, I've typed in the link for everybody there. And I have loads of different episodes about, all this kind of stuff. I have career coaches come on. I have recruiters come on. I have mindset coaches come on, and we talk about all the different advice and tips and tricks that people can.
And I think it's not just the technical skills. It's almost that simulation of culture.
Definitely.
Right. And one of the reasons why they ask for those local experience is they almost want to deprogram you a little bit.
Yep.
It's not the technical skills they want you to learn. It's like, programming in Australia is not different from programming in another country. It's
same
not
language, same computer, everything's the same.
It's a universal computer.
Yep.
So it is the other thing is the culture.
Yep.
Otherwise, why would they want local experience? Is they want you to work with those things, and you get it by a little bit of a simulation. So if you work for another company, it might take you a couple of years, might make a few people angry because you didn't do certain things or didn't speak up.
Yep.
And now you learn to do it.
Yep.
But if you do a few of these things, like attend some of these sessions, look at the channels, I'll put my channel up there as well. You actually pick up by simulation and some of that culture.
Definitely. And the other thing is, sometimes it's a great step to kind of come to a new place, take a role that might be 50% or 60% of what you would ideally like, but it allows you to get into the culture, into the workforce, learn how things work. And then you will be recognized. If you're doing a great job, you'll be recognized as someone that's an asset, and you will escalate and be promoted to where you belong as well. Or then you can use that as a stepping stone to another role, as long as you don't go, as I mentioned, changing jobs every 6 months. But, there's nothing wrong with when you come, take a role that's slightly different, do your time, learn, assimilate into the workplace, and then you have a springboard to work with forever. If you try and get that same job that you had back there, you might not get it, So there's nothing wrong with taking a sidestep to get where you need to go.
And I'm just looking at the last poll results. Surprisingly, most people said they lack experience working with business and senior stakeholders. And also they said their network was the reason why they couldn't get their next role. And a little bit less, they thought are lacking technical ability. So not that many of you actually, only one person actually said my communication and selling myself skills was their biggest barrier.
But you know what, I would challenge people, because a lot of people think that they might be selling themselves well, but they might not be selling themselves as well as they could be. I have challenge people on that, because I've spoken to and I've interviewed so many candidates over the years, and only a very small percentage really do the work up front of what I'm saying to be ready and articulate, and things that you say, scripting and getting ready for interviews and role playing. Very few people do that work up front to really impress me. And so I would challenge you on that, because, you have to do the work. If I was in another country, I would do it.
Yeah. And I think even turning up well dressed.
Yep. 100%.
And I actually have found that IT people don't even take that step sometimes.
Yep, they don't.
Because, you know, in IT, they don't, you know, they dress more casually.
Yep.
But imagine if you did, right? You would automatically stand out.
Yep.
As the marketable IT guy.
Absolutely. Look, I do a lot of video Zoom interviews now, and people rock up in their jeans and a scruffy shirt. They haven't shaved. They haven't done their hair. You know, they've got a hat on, whatever. And I'm thinking, is this the first impression that you want to create?
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though the role, it might be techie and it might be funky and it's, you know, Google and it's all that kind of stuff. I would still like to see you dressed up with a shirt, comb your hair, shave, and be presentable and show me that you've done some work. Did you really want this job?
Think about it as a date as well, right?
Exactly.
You want to make a good impression. Otherwise, you won't find your partner.
Yeah.
Your partner will never accept you if you turned up like that.
Yeah. You know,
so
you've got to, I'd rather be over-dressed than underdressed.
Yeah. No matter what the popular IT startup sort of philosophy is, reality is you got to make a good first impression still.
Yep. That's a great analogy. You've come up with some absolute gold today, Dick. Like, think of this as a date. You know, if you're on a date with your dream partner, you're going to think about what you're going to say. You're going to think about how you're going to dress. You're going to think about what you're going to order. You're going to think about how you're going to wash your car before you pick them up. You know, job seeking is exactly the same. You've got to do the work up front. You don't just pick up the phone or just turn up and say, all right, here we go, give me a job. Or here we go, I'm your guy or I'm your girl, let's go out.
Inside. You won't see it yet. But once you get to know me, you'll find out what I am inside. Exactly. It's not going to happen. They're not going to take that risk.
No, you've got to do the work. I can't stress that enough.
Darren, it was a pleasure to talk with you. And thank you for our audience members on Facebook and live on Zoom. We've got those links up there. Spend a minute to talk, just copy it if you like, and make sure you save those. We're going to end the call in a minute. Darren, would you like to say anything final to our viewers?
Yeah, look, guys, all I can say is, you know, as I mentioned, you know, there's a common thread that's coming through here for me. And you know, this is what I tell everybody is really, if you do the work up front, you will get much more success. You know, you might not hit everyone, but you will get much better odds than if you didn't do the work up front. So people, do the work. If you're coming from whatever situation you're in, do the work to understand what the role requires, what you need to do to impress that recruiter or that hiring manager. If you're coming from another place, think about the cultural aspect and what traits you need to show people that you can fit in and you can assimilate to that culture of that company or that team. And just do the work, do your resume, prepare, practice, talk to people like Dick that can give you guidance in this area, because, you know, you need to make sure that you are marketable for success. If you don't do it, you know, you're not going to, you know, you can succeed, but the odds are much less. Okay? And I'm happy for everybody to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you've got a question, ask a question on LinkedIn. I'm happy to answer. And you know, there's loads of content that I put up for free as well about this kind of stuff. So always happy to answer.
Feel free to connect myself. Make a mention when you do connect, especially do it on a computer, so you can make a comment and mention that you saw us here. Otherwise, I don't know who you are. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time, and I'll put up the next thing in the groups that I've put up as well.
Awesome. Good luck, everybody, and I hope you do really well.